Hi, Ellie.
Put sound on when you're muted.
I just did this.
You're muted.
I'm not muted. Hi, Ellie.
Hi.
How you doing? Did you have a nice Shabbat?
Yeah.
You look well rested. Did you take a nap today?
Yeah.
Oh.
Did you play outside?
Hello.
Did you play outside?
Did you play outside?
You did. It was so beautiful outside.
Oh, wasn't it beautiful today?
It was gorgeous.
It's a wonderfully beautiful day. It's a terrific day.
In more ways than one.
It's a fabulous day.
Yes.
Okay. People are coming in. Hi, Rabbi. Bye. Hi, rabbis, both.
Did you see it?
No.
It's great.
Good to see everybody again.
Yes.
Hello, Judith.
Right?
Hey. Oof.
Yes.
Good to see you too, Rabbi Lawson.
A little bit more. A little bit more. Wait.
Okay, people are coming in. Hi,
Rab-
Rebecca.
Rabbi Spitzer,
Yes.
we spoke to Zoe last night or the other night, and she mentioned that somebody you knew was working at Binghamton with the Hillel kids. Lily Schwartzman,
Oh, yeah.
she said Zoe was doing some questioning program.
Yeah. I think I do know Lily.
Who's there? Is that Maddie? Is that Maddie? No.
It does look like Maddie and Ava are here.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, Ellie.
Hi.
Rabbi Spitzer, everybody's coming in slowly, so let's wait another few minutes.
I think we can probably manage that.
Okay. Just says it's one after another, and that's wonderful.
Participants. Shows. This is participants.
17.
Yes, coming. Jeffrey Nellen. Oh yeah, I can see.
So we're going to begin in just a couple moments. It's my pleasure to share that we're going to begin our evening this evening with Havdalah, which Rabbi Lawson is going to lead for us. Havdalah is the beautiful ceremony which marks the end of Shabbat and the beginning of the rest of the week. It is a part of what it means to mark Shabbat as distinct and separate. And I think it's fitting that we do Havdalah as part of one of our discussions of race and racism in the Jewish community. Not just because it fits into this sort of general idea of let's see about doing these programs at different days of the week and different times so that different people might feel like a time is more available to them than other times, which it also is good about that. But also because one of the things that we think about when we think about this topic is that Judaism is distinctive and separate. That when we do Havdalah, we say that God is the one who separates between the holy and the profane, and between Shabbat and the rest of the week, and between Jews and non-Jews. And there's an interesting, it's not that that these different categories are necessarily in opposition to each other, but we do live in a world with categories. And I think that's a part of this conversation. The words of Havdalah are remind us that we do, as pattern-seeking people, have a tendency toward groupings. And sometimes, in a spiritual sense, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. And so I think that's an important aspect, context, as we think about our own experience in these matters. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Lawson to lead us in Havdalah, and then we'll continue with our program.
First of all, I want to say thank you all so much for having me, and I also want to apologize. I think we had a misunderstanding, a huge one. My understanding was that you wanted me to sing. I didn't know you wanted me to lead Havdalah. So I don't have a prayer book here. I don't have candles here. I don't have.
We have those.
Yeah, but I don't even have the liturgy here. Like that's. I mean, I could pull it up online, but that's not what I was prepared to do.
No, we have those things. We can do that.
Yeah.
But we would love for you to sing.
Yes, I'm happy to do that, and I'm also happy to come back another time and lead Havdalah.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Great. All right, so I will, do you have something you'd like to sing? Are you going to sing with Havdalah, after Havdalah?
We can sing after, that's fine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So let me just, that's wine. Yeah.
Kids.
So,
Kids and
none
dogs.
for you, kiddo. None for you. Okay. I'm going to pull up the liturgy and put it on screen so you can follow along with me. And okay. All right.
Rabbi Spitzer, should we be muted or?
Nah, you can sing along with me. That's totally fine. All right. Yep, Rachel's gonna hit the lights. And you can follow along. I like to sing the first paragraph to the tune of The Rose by Bette Midler. Hine el Yeshuati eftach velo evcha Ki oti bezimrat yav Adonai, vayihili lishua, ushavtem mayim betzason, mimayne Yeshua, Ladonai, Yeshua, Alamcha, v'chatecha selah, Adonai Tzevot Imanu, Mizgav Lanu, Elohei Yaakov Selah. Adonai Tzevot, Ashrei Adam Boteach Ba. Adonai Hoshia, Hamelech Yaneinu, V'yom Koreinu. Layudim hayta ora besimcha besason vikar kein tielanu kos Yeshuot esa uveshem Adonai ekram yananai nai yanai nai Yananai nai yanai nai Yananai nai yanai nai Yananai nai yananai nai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei peri hagafen Yananai nai yananai nai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei minei besamim Yananai nai yananai nai Yananai nai yanai nai Yananai nai yanai nai Yananai nai yanai nai Yananai nai yananai nai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei meorei ha'esh Yananai nai yananai nai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hamavdil bein kodesh lechol bein or lechoshet bein Yisrael amim bein yom hashivi l'sheishet yimei ha'maseh l'sheishet yimei ha'maseh Baruch atah Adonai Hamavdil bein kodesh lechol Yananai nai yananai nai Yananai nai yanai nai Shavua tov Yananai nai yanai Yananai nai yanai nai Yananai nai yananai nai Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol Hatoteinu yimchol Zareinu v'chasbeinu yarbe arbe kachol Lecha kochavim balayla Zareinu v'chasbeinu yarbe arbe kachol Lecha kochavim balayla Shavua tov, 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 Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatifi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Agiladi, Bimera B'yameinu, Yavo Eleinu, Imashiach Ben David, Mashiach ben David, Miriam Ha'Deviah, Oz v'Zimra beyada, Miriam Koditanu, Lehagdil Zimrat Olam, Miriam Koditanu, Letakein et Olam. Bimera b'yameinu, ite b'yeinu, el mei ha-Yeshua, el mei ha-Yeshua. Shavua Tov.
I've never heard Havdalah to the Rose. I totally am in love with it, and I'm going to start to use it.
Well, we really love the Rose in our family because it's one of the songs that that Rachel like used to sing in a singing group, or even before that. Just I don't know. I have this CD from early on in our relationship with her singing the Rose for me, and then we pretty much have sung it almost every night of Ellie's life as part of bedtime.
It's so great. I love how our liturgy can adapt and grow and reflect the times that we actually live in our own experiences. Yeah. So I just saw the screen switch to my big face, so I put it back in. I'd rather see your faces. Thank you for that, and I was really looking forward to coming here, and I was like, wow, I get to spend another Shabbat with you all. I don't know about you, but I have actually been glued to my television for most of the day, and yesterday. Since we're having this conversation, I decided to play a song that I actually wrote when I was in Israel. Rafi, were you on the encounter trip with us? I can't remember. Yeah,
I was on several encounter trips.
Okay.
I believe, yes, I was an encounter fellow while we were there.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this was I only went on one, so I think it might have been the first one. So the words in here are actually quotes from Palestinians, except for the Hebrew. And I wrote this song after an encounter trip. Encounter is, and you probably know the language better than I have because I haven't really paid any attention to them since then. But it's a way for Palestinians to tell their narrative, their stories to Jews, and it's an amazing program. And it's listening, really active listening. And then I'm an IFYC fellow. IFYC is Interfaith Youth Corps, and I wrote this song while I was in Israel to sort of share my concerns, my pains, my heartache around listening to Palestinian stories. But today, it really fits to a lot what's happening in our country, and I'm an Interfaith Youth Corps fellow, or Interfaith America fellow, and I get to create media. So I made a video around the song that I'm about to sing, that I'm holding you all in suspense for, and I will send you all the link so that you can watch it. Maybe I'll send it when I'm done singing. So anyway, here goes. And Zoom is, sometimes challenging with singing. But all right. Oseh shalom ben Rava uyaseh shalom Oseh shalom ben Rama we say uyaseh shalom. May the one who makes peace from heaven above, we say, ooh, I say, shalom. watch me fly above the trees, 'cause you can hear my cry and you can hear my roar, but you can't take away my soul. Oh, say shalom ben Ramah. We say, ooh, I say shalom. Oh, say shalom ben Ramah. Ooh, I say shalom. May the one who makes peace from heaven above, we say, ooh, I say shalom. Now listen carefully. We'll fight and we'll cry and we'll even abide and we'll say goodbye just to stay alive, and the day will come to have dignity again. Oh, say shalom ben Ramah. Ooh, I say shalom. Oh, say shalom ben Ramah. We say, ooh, I say shalom. May the one who makes peace from heaven above, we say, ooh, I say shalom. I am human and I am free. Watch me fly above the trees. Ooh, I say shalom.
Beautiful.
Thank you. It's always weird singing on Zoom for a lot of reasons. But I hope my words landed well, and I will share the link with you all so you can read the story of how what I've done with this song. Find it.
While Rabbi Lawson is finding that link, the program this evening is an opportunity for us to engage in dialogue. I have some thoughts, and Rabbi Lawson has some thoughts, and we're going to talk to each other for a little bit, and then I think we'll open it up. Oh, you just muted.
Yes. So one of the things that I think is really cool is that you and I haven't seen each other since we were in Israel together, and a lot has changed. We're both rabbis now. And so that is a pretty amazing place, I think, to start. But I'm also, I don't know if I know we talked about this, but I don't know if someone wants to facilitate or if we want to just talk.
I think we could just,
Yeah.
I want to share, yeah, my voice is echoing. I'm not sure exactly why that is. I agree with that. I want to share the moment where I realized that there's a public perception that white Jews are racist. And like the moment where I realized that I was a white Jew. Because I I don't feel white. And I know that a lot of white Jews feel that way, and read a bunch of articles about it, and you even recommended a couple last time.
Mhm.
And it's a complicated subject, the subject of, in what way are white Jews white, and in what ways aren't they? But here's the moment that really sticks with me, that causes me, when I think about it, to just like steam. It is, it's when I was a student rabbi in a small town in Georgia, and I never experienced any anti-Semitism even remotely in Georgia, but I flew back into LaGuardia, and I was walking towards the yellow taxi cab stand, and had just come back from a weekend in Georgia, and I was feeling really good, and it had been very nice to see my congregation down there. It was, I don't know, 2:30 in the afternoon on a Sunday, and I had just driven 3 hours from Fitzgerald to Atlanta, and then flown 3 hours from Atlanta to New York, and gotten off the plane, and here I was, and I was walking towards the yellow cab stand, and the guy who was pushing Ubers, or just like the random people who drive, he said to me, "You don't want to go to the yellow cab stand. It's all a bunch of Schwarzers. I see your kippah. You want to get in the cab with one of us." And I was just floored. Like, my kippah meant something to this man that it didn't mean to me. Everything that I believe Jewish values stand for was against that moment. And yet, right, he felt like that would be received well by me. Like, oh, like this is a guy coming off a plane who's going to get in my cab, not the yellow cabs, because it's all people of color who are driving the yellow cabs. I don't know, Sandra, I don't know what you feel about that, or if you have words of wisdom. You gotta unmute.
One, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, I wish I heard more stories about. I've heard a few, but how when um, the concept of whiteness butts up against whatever values people have, and the choices that people make. Um, and sometimes people make choices that they're not necessarily proud of, um, and sometimes we do, and that's just part of um, of how we move through life. And it also breaks my heart that in that moment, like you had to hear that. This person thought that he was saying something to you that was appealing to you, and that is how racism works. I mean, sometimes the things that my wife has said, my wife is white, the things that over the years that people have said to her that they thought that she would be receptive to hearing. It breaks my heart. But I'm really, really appreciative that and like heartful that you shared that.
Yeah, so in that moment, my response, like I realized what was going on. I mean, I realized that he thought that I was racist. I mean, he thought I was racist. My response was to go into a yellow cab, which I was already planning on doing. But afterward, that interaction happened like 30 seconds, and it stayed with me for years.
Mm-hmm.
Afterward, I wished, like, is there some way that I could have said something different to him, or said no to that racism? I don't know.
Yeah, and he probably would have told
I
you
just
that.
fled.
Yeah. And he would have probably tried to explain it away, and told you that, or, he could have said a bunch of things. He was trying to sell a cab or get you into a cab. So, yeah, I mean, we are now, many Americans are now recognizing or dealing with racism in our country and how that plays out. Susan and I went for a bike ride today. We live in a small town, and so we went to we went to Burlington. Now this we live in a red area. We went to Burlington City Hall. We didn't see anybody there, so we went to Graham, which is the county seat, which was also made national news last week because of uh, um, sheriff pepper sprayed families. But that's another thing. That's another story. And students from Elon, and our president's not very happy about that. I mean, our Elon University president. But I did that. We were sort of hoping to see people to sort of like to be in community, and we didn't see anybody. But while we were there at a pub drinking a beer, we were like chatting with friends on Facebook and stuff. But oh, the point of all this is that while we were there, we saw someone with a very large Confederate flag. I'm not sure where she was going with this flag, but maybe she was gearing up also for the same reasons that we were there, but on the other side. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird to feel that a Confederate flag is such a important symbol for so many people in this country.
Alternative history, um, a narrative. It's the one time in anyone's history where the losing side got to pick the narrative. And people have told themselves all kinds of things about what that flag means, and none of it is actually accurate or true, other than the fact that it was the Confederate battle flag for the Confederate States. But the other stuff that people tell them, they tell themselves about it, is just not accurate. And some of the things I've heard, it's about, which you've all have heard too. It's not about racism. It's about heritage. It's about love. It's about remembering my ancestors, remembering my they fought for this flag. It's about all those things that just only work if you believe in a particular narrative.
So my wife and I are reading a book called A Slave in the Family. I'm not
Oh,
sure
I haven't heard that one.
It's about a man whose family owned several plantations in the Charleston area, and as an adult, he's in his 30s or something like that, and he's going around trying to find out about the history of the slaves that lived on these plantations. And we just started getting into it. And one of the beginning things is something that we heard when we were in Charleston many, many years ago, was that the Civil War, the Yankees, the North always thinks that the Civil War was about slavery, and it was absolutely not about slavery. It was about states' rights. And in the book, the author is interviewing a member of his family, a white member of his family, who brings that whole thing up again and says, yeah, the Yankees always say it's slavery, but it isn't. It was states' rights. And it just sort of blows my mind as, well, what right was that? The right to make sure that no new states admitted to the Union would be slave-free? Is that the states' right that they were? Anyway, it's just sort of just blew my mind to hear it again, and the first time having heard it in this tour of Charleston.
The former President Trump's chief of staff made that same reference while he was still chief of staff, and that's a narrative that when I went to school. That's what I was taught. That it was that you just said, and I always knew that that wasn't true. One, I had Black parents, and I was an avid reader. Um, but yeah, that was in the history books of when I went to grade school. That slavery, and I remember a teacher saying that it wasn't about slavery; it was about states' rights.
Are we allowed to just join in?
I like that. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Yeah. I actually, I don't agree that the Civil War was for states' rights. I think that was only a small part of it. I think it was fought for economic reasons because cotton was a huge industry and it was a function of capitalism. But I think where the whole concept of states' rights is this country was founded when the Constitution was written, and people were figuring out what it was going to be all about. There were a lot of arguments with Alexander Hamilton about whether there should be a strong central government or whether the states should have supreme power. And interestingly enough, the Republican Party way back then was more like the Democratic Party now. But the Republican Party now, forgetting about the Tea Party and what's happened in the last 20, 30 years, where we're at right now, but when it used to just be a horse race between Democrats and Republicans, my understanding is that Republicans are against a strong central government. They believe in the paramount value of states' rights. So that's what I wanted to say about that. And I wanted to say just one thing about white skin. Without getting into the whole conversation about Jews, are they white, are we not white? Because like, we're certainly not WASPs. But the thing is, people that have white skin privilege are treated a different way in this society. So I think we should bear that in mind. And as far as the guy saying you don't want to take that cab because there are schwarzes, I've heard people in my own family use that expression. And I know it means black, but it's not the same thing as calling somebody a Black American or an African American. It has a pejorative ring to it, just like the N-word, as far as I'm concerned. So I do think there is a lot of racism in the Jewish community as much as there is in other communities. I don't think that Jews are above racism at all. And I think it's very, very problematic. So I think we have a lot of work to do.
Amen. Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of work to do.
I think that's right.
Can I add something in?
Yes, this is the hunt for the yellow box.
So I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Get Out. So sort of billed as a science fiction horror movie, but it's much more than that. It's basically a parable about what we sometimes call the plantation mentality, which is not new. If you look at any society, there was always an elite and a subservient portion of the population that served the elite. And even though over thousands of years, people have evolved, this particular motif has not. We still live in a world where there is an elite and a subservient part of the population. So the movie Get Out was very clever in that it had a scientific, pseudoscientific flavor to it. But the basic idea was white people exploiting the physical capabilities of Black Americans. And it was interesting because the movie came out a year or two after Colin Kaepernick took the knee in the National Football League. And this created a big controversy because I think it was misunderstood or purposely misunderstood by many white Americans as being disrespectful of the flag, but it really was a protest to the way Black Americans have been treated and were still treated in the United States. And so Colin Kaepernick lost his job as a quarterback and never got reinstated. And President Trump was one of those individuals who made a big deal about it as disrespecting the flag and the national anthem. But most of the NFL players who supported Kaepernick were careful in saying that this was not disrespect for the flag, but rather a demonstration of how Black Americans had been mistreated and exploited for centuries, and it's still going on. Now, many people said, well, these athletes are well paid. But that's really besides the point. Fact that they're well paid seems to be an excuse for saying that they have no right to speak about their position in society. And so somehow the money justifies the effect of slavery, because it still is effective slavery when you don't allow those people to have a voice and an opinion. So to think that we've evolved in many ways is probably true, but I don't think we've evolved in the context of an elite class and a subservient class. And this still seems to be the way many societies still operate. And I hope we will come to grips with it with a new administration. But if you see how many people voted for Trump, it's not a slam dunk. There's so much work to be done, and it's not going to happen in one administration or even two. It's just a problem which we have swept under the rug. Trump was not the cause, he was a symptom of a long established problem in society.
I guess I want to follow up on what Don said by asking you, Sandra, like, what can we do? Small community in upstate New York. I mean, what can we do to be good allies?
Well, also I want to answer that, but I also want to just jump on what I think, and this, I don't want to turn this into a political conversation, but the Republican Party has a problem of demographics and a shrinking base. If their base is predominantly made up of white men, they need to do something, because the demographics are changing so much that whatever they're offering is not going to appeal. And so I'm just saying all that because I've been looking at maps and demographic maps for the last couple of days, and when you look at how the majority of Americans voted, and if you remove women from that, and if you remove people of color from that, you see how white people or white men have voted, and that's the largest group of people that voted for Trump today and are now and in 2016. But I'm saying, like, we need to recognize that our demographics are shifting, and we need to appeal and be more inclusive of who we actually are as Americans. Now, to answer your question, what can we do? I think I think we're all trying to figure it out. I mean, if you are a person that's waking up to how our society has been functioning for the last 400 years or 500 years, you can't change everything overnight. And the best thing that we can do is to continue educating ourselves and continue having conversations. And so, I've never been to Schenectady, New York. I hope to come there one day. We were trying to do that. So I don't know much about your demographics. And I know that many in our country don't talk to each other. People make assumptions about how people think and what people do and how people vote based on limited experiences from people. When people assume things about Black people but don't have any relationships with Black people, I always find that kind of interesting. So the short answer is to stay engaged. Ask yourself, I pause for a second. There's a singer that I really like. His name is Tyler Childers. He's, I guess, country or alt country. And he put out a song recently on his latest album that's mostly instrumental. It's mostly violin, but the last part is like his reflection on where we are today in our society. And they put up a video of him speaking about the song. And one thing he says is, to his native Kentuckians, because he talks about Breonna Taylor, and he's also a white dude, a white Appalachian man. And he said, he sort of flips it. He said, can you imagine if you got pulled over? He flips it so it sounds more like a Kentucky white dude instead of a Black dude. And I can't do it because I'm not a Kentucky white dude. But just saying, like, how would you feel if you were asleep in your house and police came and shot you or shot your girlfriend? Or how would you feel if you were pulled over because you had a gun rack in your truck, instead of getting pulled over and had a ticket, you were like shot at. But what I like about this is that he asked people to have empathy. He asked people to really try to put themselves in the space of Black and brown people, and what would their reactions be if they had had centuries or of constantly being attacked. They would also probably be rioting in the streets and be angry and so forth and so on. And I think that we need more of that.
Yeah. I see that Deborah and Gary have their hand up.
Yeah, I think, can you hear me?
Yep.
I think we're all born kind of in a blank. We have our nature, but we then see the world that's around us.
Mm-hmm.
Our bubbles form, and it's very hard to get out of those. And I remember in college, a girl walked into, I had a Black chemistry professor, and a woman walked in wearing a Confederate flag dress. And he, as soon as he saw her, he said, "I find that offensive. I'd like you to leave." And everybody was stunned in the audience. And I kept thinking to myself, why does he find that offensive? Quite frankly, because I was in my own bubble, and I would say it took a while for me to start to learn why people view, and even the monuments, we have to learn this stuff. You have to be educated. And I'm a big believer in dialogue, and I'm hoping through internet and hoping that we invite people to our table that are different and we have a chance to talk. But it's not that easy. I think even in the college campuses today, despite all this stuff about diversity, I think we see a lot of the Black kids hanging out with the Black kids and the Asian kids hanging out with the Asian kids. And that mixing, despite the attempts, just is still not happening. And I think that's got to change. We have to start hearing each other. And we also, we have to hear what the Midwestern white guy has to think.
Mm-hmm.
We have to start talking to them. That's my thinking.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Gary.
Mm-hmm. So I want to share something that happened just Thursday night, Friday morning. Not sure exactly, but it was just a couple days ago. In the midst of all of this hubbub around the counting of the vote in Georgia, there was an article that ran in the Jewish Insider that alleged that Reverend Warnock, who is headed for a runoff election in one of the Georgia Senate races, had signed a letter comparing Israel to apartheid South Africa. Now, I just want to say that the letter did not compare Israel to apartheid South Africa. Reverend Warnock did not write the letter, he signed it. And what the letter did say was it explicitly endorsed a two-state solution. And that's an uncontroversial opinion for an American political leader. It's also not what most of the Democratic Party believes right now, right? The Democratic Party has swung much more toward a one-state solution policy where it takes away the Jewish character of the state and focuses on the democratic character of the state and wants to enfranchise everybody, even if that means that there is no more Jewish state, right? That is, I think, an honest and fair characterization of the position of much of the Democratic Party, or at least growing sentiment in the Democratic Party. And the idea that Reverend Warnock is explicitly endorsing a two-state solution is actually something that I as an individual, but I think as a Jewish religious leader, that's a position that I want more of the progressive party to have in rather than a one-state solution that eliminates the Jewish character of the state. And yet, I saw on Facebook, many rabbis and other Jewish leaders were sharing this disinformation article with alarm and talking about, oh no, now the Georgia Jews are going to have to choose between, two bad eggs. And I think, right, we have a situation where, like, attempting to attack Democratic politicians for being anti-Israel is a thing that's happening a lot. And I get that it works for a certain part of the population, but it is disproportionately done to candidates who are people of color. And I'm a big supporter of Israel and the Jewish character of that state and the democratic character of that state. And I believe that Israel should continue to exist as a Jewish and democratic state. And it really upsets me when there's this push to paint, especially candidates of color, this anti-Israel brush. I think it's racist. It's racist. It comes from a racist place in ourselves. And it's not that there aren't candidates of color who are anti-Israel. Of course there are. And there are also white candidates who are anti-Israel. And, we should do everything that we can to educate them to our point of view and to hope that that we are on the correct side of this issue. And as much as we can put pressure on Israel to make sure that we are on the correct side of that issue, I think that's really important too. But since you since you played that song at the beginning and brought up our experience at Encounter listening to the voices of Palestinians, I felt like this issue is an issue which bridges those two issues, what's going on in Israel and the political ramifications of that here. And what should we do when we see that particular politicians are being attacked for this particular thing? And how do we feel about that? I'll just add one more thing, which is, President Barack Obama, on his last day in office or second to last day in office, allowed his administration not to veto a UN resolution condemning Israel, which he would have, I think, vetoed several months before, but he sort of felt like he was going out of office and he didn't have any political. There was nothing stopping him this time, and to me, it felt a little bit like he jumped up and down on Israel on his last day in office. And then I'm wondering, am I more upset about that because he's Black? I just don't know. Is there a racist tendency in me that is more upset about that than I would otherwise have been? Maybe I wouldn't have even known about it if it hadn't been that he was Barack Obama, the first Black president. I don't know. It's complicated. But this disinformation thing in Georgia is happening right now.
Yeah, it's I think, again, I'm trying to rack my brain trying to even remember if I knew that story about what Barack Obama did. I think one of the things is asking yourself that question is a really good start, and because you're actually trying to challenge yourself to see where your motives are. And in the last few days, or yes, all the days are running together. People were talking about the how people voted in Florida, and using this sort of framing of the Hispanic vote. Biden lost a Hispanic vote. Well, actually, he lost a particular Hispanic vote in Florida, but they were talking about the campaign ads of saying that Biden's a socialist, and that appealed to make a certain demographic vote for Trump. We are too quick to believe these narratives of about people of color or in that case, not a was people of color voting for Trump, but Trump knew that that would appeal to the Venezuelans and the Cubans that were living in the state of Florida. Um, and you know the number of like disinformation that comes down from any black or brown person who holds political office, like the Squad, for example. I happen to know rabbis that live in Ilhan Omer's district. If I'm saying her name incorrectly, forgive me. Um, and they support her. Um, and these are not Orthodox rabbis, but they work with her or worked with her. But they taught, one of them in particular talks to me about like the things that people say about her that are just actually not true. And we need to, like you said, we need to recognize that, which I said this last time we were here, that black and brown people are no more likely to be anti-Semitic than white people. It's just that racism plays a factor in how we view them. And I think, Rafi, what you're doing is amazing by asking yourself these questions, because many people don't want to do that. And it's hard. I mean, it's really, really hard. And then if we make a decision that we later realize is racially biased, and this goes for all of us, racially biased or sexist or whatever, then we have to do the other work of doing teshuva on ourselves, forgiving ourselves so that we can move forward so that we don't do that again.
Yeah.
I think the problem is not simply a problem about racism. It's the problem of trying to understand what is the truth, what are the facts, and that people tend to want to believe that which they already think is true.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy if you hear some statement like that and you're already a little racist,
Mm-hmm.
that, well, that must be true because
Of course, yeah.
that's it. So when we talk about educating people, people also have to educate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to admit that you have biases.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to get over those biases. I was fortunate in that my training was as a scientist. And as a scientist, one of the most important aspects of being successful is that you don't jump to conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
You try and understand the facts as best you can. Sometimes that's limited because you may not have all the facts, or the facts may not all be there. But the first question you should always ask yourself is this true? Can this possibly be true? And, you know, let me go and research it. Let me look at different points of view to see if this really is the truth. That's difficult. It takes time. It takes work. But unless people are willing to do that, we're never going to get beyond where we are now, because it's just too easy to keep believing what you think
Mm-hmm.
is true, but what you believe is not necessarily true.
I would share a
follow
story.
up.
Go ahead.
If I can follow up on what Don
Yeah.
said. So he said about, you know, we tend to believe what we want to believe. In this election, there was an incredible amount of disinformation
Mm-hmm.
specifically targeted to specific voting blocks to sway which way they would vote. And as Don said, information comes in, and because it's sort of where you're leaning anyway,
Mm-hmm.
you believe it, rather than saying, what is the source of this information? Who is this QAnon group? I don't know them. Who is this Proud group? I don't know them.
Proud Boys.
Proud Boys. New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, these reliable newspapers check out all the facts for me so I don't have to. But from unknown sources,
Yeah.
they're pulling the information out of the backside of their mouth.
Except when you have an institution, the president, that says that, you know, that all those reputable sources that you just named are named are fake news.
Yeah,
and
but
I
he
get it.
lies all the time.
Well, I know.
I wouldn't believe him anyway.
But I have to share a story with you. Like, you know, I, like a lot of people, you know, during political seasons, you know, you see things from your older friends that's sort of surprising to you, and some of you may want to unfriend them. And I actually don't have I do have acquaintances I knew of that have different political perspectives than I do, and that's okay. But this particular person, her argument was that she thought really hard, and this is, whatever you think about it, is a highly educated woman, also happens to be white. And her thinking on this Facebook post was that she thought long and hard about it, but after our president said that more of the riots are happening in democratically run cities, then she's like, that's actually true, and I don't like that, so I'm going to vote for Trump. And so that is like drawing, you know, that's getting your it's a false equivalent. It's late, I can't think right now, but like she put these facts together and therefore it supported whatever she was thinking, but she used that irrational logic to support her way of thinking. And I was just like, okay. And my wife pointed it out to me, and all I said was, that is not the person I used to know. And she's like, you're gonna unfriend her? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna unfriend her over this. Like, I just won't talk to her about it. And I'm not someone that argues these things on Facebook. It's just not worth it. But I'm just saying, like people will draw these conclusions based off of whatever facts that they can put together. And the logic does not, it works for them, but there's more to it than that. So, oh yeah, Biden's speech, I forgot about it.
Yeah, catch the summary.
Yeah. Yeah, this is personally, on a personal note, I cried today. Like, I and am relieved that no part that I'm not going to listen to the leader, any leader in our government, the president or the vice president, disparage Muslims, say bad things about Black and brown people, say things about queer people, say nasty, horrible things about women. And I really want us to get back to what I think Biden has done very well: empathy, normalcy, you know, behaving, in my opinion, the way a president should behave. You know, but to not have to worry every day, is a president going to attack me or someone who looks like me? That has been really, really hard to deal with for the last 4 years. You know?
Yeah, I will say, I think I grew up in Massachusetts. I still think of myself in some ways as a Bostonian. And I went and looked, and every single county in the state of Massachusetts voted for Joe Biden in this cycle. That isn't always true. There are counties in Massachusetts that sometimes vote with more Republican, but in this particular election, every county in Massachusetts went blue. And I looked at the New York map, which is where we live now, and Massachusetts was 68%, 30%. And New York is 55%, 45%. Schenectady County voted blue in this election. Albany County voted blue in this election, but a lot of counties did not, in right around where we live. And our congregation is not one, does not speak with one voice on this issue. We have folks who come from a wide spectrum of political opinions. A lot of folks who describe themselves as non-Trump Republicans, or just Republicans of a saner era, or a lot of people say that. But I imagine that some of the people who say that voted for Trump, right? Because the numbers in our county are the way they are. And I guess, like, for me, it's very important to be in community with people who disagree with me.
Yeah.
That's part of what it means to continue to ask myself the difficult questions, and to if I'm only in an echo chamber of my own ideas, my own opinions, I think it's much harder to do this hard work. Also, if all the anti-racists get together in a room and seal off the doors and don't talk to any racist people, then, like, what good is it to be anti-racist?
Mhm.
Like, in other words, if racism isn't about beliefs but is about systems of oppression, being an anti-racist does nothing if you are not working to change the systems of oppression.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
I feel is really hard.
We are a nation of laws. And I don't think it's realistic to imagine that we're going to change everyone's view on race or any other topic. Our hope is that we will have laws which protect people. I think that's the best we can hope for. And dialogue is certainly important, but ultimately I think you want to have laws available that protect the public. And I think under the Trump administration, there was an erosion of those laws. It was like the Equal Rights Voting Act that, I mean, Roberts made this comment that, which just I found amazingly naive, that we don't need these laws anymore because these particular states are now following it. It's sort of like saying to a person with a heart problem, well, I feel pretty well now, so why don't you just go off your medication? I mean, immediately after they, revoked these laws, North Carolina, the other states went back to their old practices. So ultimately, we want to have people in power who enact laws that protect the public. That's what I think the goal is. I don't expect that everyone's going to like everyone else. That's unrealistic. But I do expect that we should have leaders who enact laws that protect the public. That's my hope.
Mine too. And then I also hope the more diversity that is in our law-making body, in our House and Senate, the better our laws will be for everyone. If we, for the longest time, we made laws, and the people making laws were mostly men, or all men, all white men. And the more women we have, the more people of color voices we have, then we will have better laws that actually support all of us.
I have a comment and some questions. The comment is mostly for Rabbi Spitzer. There were bumper stickers that abounded after the 1972 election. Don't blame me, I'm from Massachusetts. I don't know if you heard about that, but that was the vote for McGovern, or the only state that went for McGovern. So those are the bumper stickers that proliferated at that time. Kind of, in a way, kind of coming away from the absolute political issue, I wonder about what is considered diversity training. What actually is it? And what actually is the goal of it? Especially wondering that because this past administration now removed it from federal agencies and forbade it.
Right.
And I wonder what does it, I haven't been in a place where I've had diversity training per se. What does it work towards? Is it for us as individuals to look at ourselves and say, how would I respond if I'm in a car and I get pulled over? And I thought about it. If I'm reaching for my driver's license that in my purse on the other side from where I'm sitting, does this cop think I'm going to be reaching for a gun? But I'm white, so maybe not, probably not. Or is this diversity training supposed to be something that really expands our society? I don't know what it actually is and what its goal is.
So yeah, I remember. So when Trump did not like what's now called diversity, equity, inclusion training or whatever, diversity DEI is the catchphrase.
Okay.
And institutions like our governmental institutions, our schools, all have DEI, some type of DEI statement or diversity statement that they're trying to live up to, and so they bring in people or they do training or workshops to live up to those values. So they, asking the hard question, are we actually living up to our values that are stated in this document when it comes to our hiring practices? Do our numbers reflect who we actually want to be, or do our numbers reflect who we actually are? The training has to connect with whatever the mission of the organization is. You can't just bring someone in to do diversity training. So for example, the president of where I work at Elon University, one of her tasks has been as part of the DEI statement, is to put a task force together to understand our history of slavery at Elon University. How did slavery play a part into our institution, so that we can, and I was part of that committee, and looking at all of our history and our archives. And so diversity training, in short, is set up by whatever organization, and then you create training and teachings around what you're trying to accomplish. But really, the term is really vast. And so if we're trying to create an environment to increase our racial diversity, equity, inclusion, then we're going to focus on our racial diversity. But there's also other kinds of diversity. In Jewish spaces, we could be talking about interfaith marriage. We could also be talking about people with disabilities. We could be talking about a lot of things. And so that's all laid out in what your organization is trying to accomplish. What you're also describing is the personal piece. That is something that individuals need to work on. And if you work in an organization that is really trying to not just work on the systematic challenges around diversity, but also trying to tap into the individual stuff, then that institution should give you tools or workshops or readings or whatever to help you with your individual biases.
I was thinking about Rabbi Spitzer's story at the taxi stand, and thinking, how many times can I look at my own history and say, I've encountered something like this, or I maybe have contributed to something like this, and really needing to sit down maybe and just write list after list in that way. And, thinking again, when if I were stopped by a cop for a traffic ticket, well, am I thinking for myself? Am I thinking in a broader sense? Am I thinking, how would it be for a person of color in this situation? Does that make me a racist because I'm even thinking along those lines? I'm asking myself that question. Mm-hmm. What does that mean about me?
Yeah. One of the things I was just, as you were saying that, for some reason, I was thinking about Jonathan Sacks, who passed away, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, who passed away with all the, I kind of feel like whenever there's good news, there's got to be something that's like.
I've been thinking about him. Yeah, Rabbi Sacks, I've been praying for him for weeks because of his cancer, and he did pass away today, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah. And I don't think it was him that said it. Maybe it was. I don't know. But It's somewhere in one of our texts somewhere. But in order for I know where it is now. But anyway, I think it's a Rambam. But when for teshuva to work, or if you know teshuva has worked, or if you know that you have done all the steps you need to do, is when you're confronted with the same situation again and you don't do it. And so if you're trying to improve on something, if you made a mistake or you misstepped, and then you do the work to learn, to grow, and then when the same circumstance happens to you again and you do something differently, then you've should be able to forgive yourself and move on. And because I think it's too easy to say sometimes, I forgive that person, I forgive myself, but not doing the actual work. I don't, and I'm really proud of both of you who've said that, like, you've asked yourself the hard questions, and asking yourself, does that make you racist or whatever, and that those are really hard questions, and you have to grapple with them and figure it out, and also understand that why you're asking yourself those questions and how our society has worked, and not just racist, but like sexism, homophobia, all those things. There's so much that we say and do, and that is just part of our society that's sexist or that's homophobic, and we just sort of look the other way. The fact that that B word is so common in our vernacular just annoys me. The one that describes a female dog, and sexist. But it's in our music, it's in it's in a lot of things that we do, and it's moved on to either often described as a bad individual, but it's still sexist language. I saw when I said that some of you were confused, and that's why I said female dog. I don't know.
It rhymes with witch.
Yes.
I've known a few women who occasionally do actions which are self-promoting or strong-willed, and then will apologize for being too bitchy.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think, right, there's an internalized aspect, and I have occasionally turned to friends of mine and said, it's okay to be self-promoting. You don't have to put yourself down after you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As a male-bodied person, I am aware of the privilege that I have in society through no actions of my own.
Is there someone who hasn't said anything that is maybe waiting for an opportunity? And I said this last time, but I hope it carries over to this time, that I want this to be a safe space. And so if there's something that you want to bring forth, please do.
I'd like to put my 2 cents in about being called a bitch or bitchy. One response I've heard is, why, thank you. Appropriating the term bitch into a compliment. And a couple of years ago, I read an essay about a Black student in a Southern university where Confederate flags were all over the place. And he decided to appropriate the Confederate flag and hung one in the rear window of his pickup truck. And he said it sort of took the steam out of the white Southerners who thought this was their flag. This Black guy's got this flag. And he talks about answering an ad, someone was selling something he wanted, and he drives up to the guy's house, and the guy's got the Confederate flag in the window, and he's a real obvious racist. And here comes this Black guy with a Confederate flag in his window. And he said, it just totally changed the whole exchange between them. And then there is the Proud Boys, and some gay men appropriated that,
Yeah.
posted a picture of two gay guys kissing, hashtag Proud Boys. So it's like, you know, we can take words that people think are an insult and turn it around and make it not an insult anymore. My 2 cents.
Thank you.
I like that. Well, I think the hardest thing is just to stand up when somebody says something negative. And we each have to take responsibility for when we don't do that. If somebody is insulting somebody just personally, having nothing to do with stereotypes, but especially perhaps when it has to do with stereotypes, and kind of going back to whoever, as Marina mentioned, you know, the insult of a Schwarze, which I did not entirely grow up with, but I'm the daughter of Holocaust survivors, and there were people who made all kinds of remarks about them, some of them insulting. You know, how'd you buy your way out, or things like that. And I was too young to respond to them then, but it's the kind of thing I wish I had been able to punch somebody in the face, actually, but I didn't. So having the courage to stand up to somebody and saying, that's the wrong thing to say, and here's why.
Yeah, allyship is so important. It's really important to be a good ally.
Yeah.
You know.
But that was being an ally with myself.
No.
And, you know, I'm talking about being 8, 9 years old. So,
yeah,
that wasn't going to happen then.
I want to reiterate Sandra's invitation to anybody who hasn't yet spoken.
I think there's a point that nobody's made yet, which is that there's some very hopeful signs coming along. And I think people respond better when there are examples that they can follow. And I think the media has been very good at this. I don't know if you've noticed in commercials, for example, tendency to show interracial couples. If you've been watching some of the British television series, the number of intermarried couples that they're depicting in crime drama, you know, it's not really an important part of it, but it makes something more acceptable when you see these examples in front of you. And we've all gone through something that happened in the last 20 years. It's miraculous in how people view homosexuals. You know, that's a revolution. It happened so quickly. All the change that occurred. I think a lot of it had to do with what we were seeing on television, reading, so that I think that changes people's attitudes. We all have to work on our own perception of who we are and how we relate to other people. But some of that's being done for us, and I think it will have the long-term implications that we all would like to see.
Representation matters. It matters in a big way. To see yourself represented on the screen, like in TV shows or anything that we do, it really makes a difference. There's a picture of Kamala and her niece, I think, and the niece is like talking about all the things that she can be when she grows up, and one of them is, yes, she can be president or vice president. But right now, I think the child wants to be an astronaut.
Much better.
Yeah.
I think about representation in and the growing multiracial queer and families that look different representation in PJ Library books, for
Yeah.
example. So for those of you who aren't aware, PJ Library is a program funded mainly by the Harold Grinspoon Foundation and others, which sends free, that is free to the families, sends a book on an age-appropriate book with Jewish content to kids age 0 to 8, and then you can even keep going. There's a PJ Our Way, like you get to choose the books once you turn 8. You get to choose from a list of 5 or whatever. Anyway, since our daughter was 6 months old, she's been getting one every month, and our new child will be able to sign up from the day they're born. Even in the last 3 years, I have seen a marked difference in the representation of people of color, queer families, and in the books that we've gotten. And when they're not, I've seen big uproars from folks who are concerned about the importance of that representation. It's been very interesting to watch. Of the books that Ellie got in the first year we were subscribed, only one had a person who wasn't white. But now almost every single book has some page with some people of color. And I really think that's important.
Yeah.
Because the Jewish community is also diverse.
I was just going to say, it's unfortunately not happening enough at the high school level. I just sat through a panel discussion with 3 Black students who were discussing their experiences in high school. And one girl was saying that in her curriculum that she got, there were 7% of all the authors were persons of color. And she said, I have nothing against European white history and white American history, but why do I have to have an elective to learn about my own history, my own background? She said, it's really tough. We have Black History Month, which is, it should be something that's part of our curriculum all year round. It shouldn't just be a one-off or an elective. And it was really impactful hearing her and the others talking about what it's like to try and learn about their own culture in the American curriculum. And this is in New York, which is better than, I would guess, a lot of the other states.
Yeah.
You have your volume up?
Oh.
Well, I will say that the board of the congregation has embarked on the very early stages of a website overhaul, and we're definitely thinking about the suggestion that you gave us at our last session about making sure that our public image reflects the diversity that is a part of our congregation, and also that we hope continues to be a growing part of our congregation. And so I'm very excited because our website needs some work. I'm very excited that those comments came at just the right time to help make sure that that we make those choices well.
And also, I think thank you for telling me that. And I was talking to someone recently. I don't think many Jewish communities understand that, like, people, when they're looking for a synagogue and they're in a marginalized group, whether they're gay or queer or black or brown, they're going to go to your website and they're going to see if they're looking to see themselves represented in your community. And sadly, if they don't find it or it's not enough, they won't come. And I think for many Jews who are white, that's just not something they do. They just go to a synagogue. But for people like me, I spent a lot of time on websites or talking to people about a community before I even walk in the door. So if you can do the job of showcasing that you're welcoming and showcasing how you are as a community, that will go a long way to be attractive to people like me when they're looking for a synagogue. Or even not like me, like anyone who even, I think I mentioned this before, like there are, like white families or white Jews who have people of color in their families. And that's also something that, a synagogue that is welcoming, not just in name only, is also very attractive to those families as well.
That's very important.
We've come close to the end of our time boundary, and I'm gonna invite Rabbi Lawson to share any closing thoughts. But before I do, I just wanted to make the announcement about our next program, which will be on Sunday, the 13th of December, which is the Sunday in the middle of Hanukkah, so it will be very celebratory. And at 10:30 a.m. So these two programs have been evenings, but we wanted to make sure to do one on a Sunday morning also, just to make it possible for other people to come who might not be able to come in evenings. Please do come. The last program is a text study, which Rabbi Lawson will guide us through, and the text study is on the subject of taking all of this conversation that we've been having and relying on our sacred texts to move toward a more inclusive future. Where we've spent last time and this time thinking about the past and the present. Our third session is looking forward, and so I think that's a really important closing for this series. And I hope to be there, but as I told Rabbi Lawson, that it is possible that I will not be because of only good reasons, which is we might have had our new addition to our family be born by then. Rachel's due on Hanukkah, so Ellie was 10 days early, so it is possible that we'll be that I'll be on family leave at that time. But the program will happen whether I'm there or not. And I think it will be a really terrific opportunity for our whole congregation, including folks who were on this call, on the last call, and who haven't been on either. All of these programs are available on our website, and I hope that people will join for our final study together on December 13th.
Yeah, and I want to say that it is a text study. I'm hoping to make it. It will be fun. It'll be sort of helping us put together what do our Jewish values say about what it means to be welcoming and radically inclusive. And I bring in texts from the Torah, the Talmud, and contemporary texts as well. And so we'll go through them. I will actually send the text the day before, probably, because I want us all to look at these texts fresh, and I don't want you to do like your research ahead of time. And so I will forward the text to you all, and then Rabbi Spitzer can send it out the day, or someone will send it out so that you all have them. And I'm just really grateful to be in community today. It's been a really interesting, exhausting last few days. And just, I really do hope that we all get to be in the same space and time in real life. And I'm just excited to meet new people. And I think that I think our country is going to move in the right direction. I'm hopeful of that. And I think we still have a lot of healing to do. We still have a lot of work to do. And having these small group conversations is a long way towards that.
Indeed, indeed.
Well, thank you so much to Rabbi Lawson for joining us. Thank you to everybody for being here. And thank you to Mishka, who chaired this event and made sure that it would happen, and to the Sadie Schneider Rosh Chodesh Learning Group for funding and sponsoring this event and this whole series. And Shavua Tov. It's been a
Shavua
pleasure,
Tov.
and I look forward to more opportunities for learning together.
Yeah, me too.
Shavua
Thank
Tov.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.